When picking elderflowers, either in the garden or in a woodland, it's best to collect them sort of first thing in the morning, but not when they're still covered with dew. You want them dry, but also you don't want them dehydrated, collecting them in the middle of the day. But rumour has it that it's best when the pollen is still on the anthers of the little flowers. They will be able to impart more flavour to the cordial also. Woodlands are a fantastic place to gather them, as they tend to be further away from roadsides where the elderflowers can be polluted with car exhaust fumes. I think what's so special about it is that you can only make it for the 2 weeks that the elderflowers are out in June, so it's sort of a very sort of treasured thing, and you don't really have it all year round. It's a very straightforward process. Right, off we go to the garden. 20 elderflower heads. When collecting in the wild, obviously it's really important to always gain the landowner's permission. But obviously it's such a wild common plant that it is everywhere and very, very, very accessible and easy to find. This is an absolutely perfect one, and I'm going to show you up close. There's not one brown flower and not one unopened flower. And possibly if I do that, you can see that there's pollen flecks on my hand. For this recipe, we're going to use 20 elderflower heads. If they're brown, like these ones here, just leave it because they're sort of definitely past their best and they won't have any pollen on them. I'm picking them with as little of the stem on as possible because the stem absolutely stinks. Another perfect one, we'll have him. Oh, I'm sort of being snowed on by them, which is rather nice. They do smell amazing, beautiful. But you can sort of go right into the middle of the bush. It's just a nice thing, picking, isn't it? I think that's probably about enough. Next step. Right. So the kettle will probably have been boiled, and we're going to now dissolve the sugar into the boiling water. This is actually a bottle that I made last year, the remnants and leftovers of it, which amazingly is still absolutely fine to use. It did have a little bit of mould on the top, but I risked it and I'm alive. Delish. The lighter sugars are better. You don't want a dark sugar like Muscovado because that would mask the flavour of the elderflower. Looks like a sort of desert sandscape. At this point, you don't need a pan that can go on the hob. You can just use any big vessel. Then water, boiling. So stir it all in. You're trying to dissolve all of the sugar. Last year I used a fully refined caster sugar, and that's the colour that it comes out. So this year it's going to be much darker, which is not normally the colour that people associate with elderflower cordial, but it won't affect the taste at all. Add 2 ounces of citric acid crystal. Note the stains on the book. I think that's probably from previous elderflower cordial, or possibly boiled egg soup. Could be absolutely fine. Look at that. Really, you could apply the same method to all sorts of different things or different sort of flowers. So I guess you could make lime cordial in the same way with lots of lime juice and lime rind and things. So I tried meadow sweet cordial with meadow sweet flowers, which are absolutely beautiful and smell amazing. It was just so overly sweet. It just stayed in a bottle for many years and went mouldy. Lovely. So here we go. Just the heads, like that. It's really important not to wash them. You would wash away all the sort of pollen with all the flavour on it. And also really advisable to use it and make it as soon as you can after you've picked them, sort of within a few hours of having picked them. Trying not to let any of these disgusting tasting stems go into the mixture. See this one with quite a lot of black fly, but we're not going to worry about it, unless you're vegan or vegetarian. So we're going to leave it like that for 24 hours so that all the flavour of the elderflower will go into the syrup, and then tomorrow we'll strain it and bottle it. I've made an elderflower cake this morning. Used a basic sort of lemon drizzle recipe, but I put in some elderflower cordial into the actual mixture, not very much, but just a touch. And then also over the top, instead of using the lemon drizzle that you normally do by mixing lemon juice with sugar, I just used lemon juice and elderflower cordial, and I'm going to put that on the bottom, and then I'm going to put the icing on the top. And do you remember how you used to make peppermint creams? And you make the peppermint creams by adding tiny drops of peppermint essence. I thought you could actually make elderflower sweets by just icing sugar and this, you know, so just leave it out to dry. Lovely. According to Mrs. Greaves, which is a book called, I think, The Modern Herbal, written in about the 1930s, she states that elderflower is good for for skin softening, for bronchial conditions, and I think that was catarrh, and also it apparently eases the pain of hemorrhoids. It's now 24 hours later, and we're going to strain the cordial and bottle it. First of all, I'm going to prepare the bottles by sterilising them in the oven. You can see the stems have all kept nicely out, not tainting the mixture. And obviously you can see how brown it is, our special unrefined sugar version. Now I'm going to strain it through, you can do it through muslin, or I'm just going to use a clean tea towel. So sweet and sugary, it gets really, really sticky. It's really important when gathering anything or foraging to not over forage, and to always leave a good amount of whatever it is you're taking, and obviously only take things that are plentiful, like nettles and wild garlic and elderflower and things like that. So you can see some of the black fly and things, amazingly, not as much as I was expecting. Lovely, look at that. It does actually look like sort of malt extract. It tastes absolutely fantastic. I'm going to let those bottles cool down before I pour the cordial into them. It keeps better in the fridge. I think actually the colours worked out pretty well, and I think it was far more interesting than a lot of other elderflower cordials on the market. Anyway, delish. This year I've chosen to use unrefined caster sugar, just because obviously unrefined things are better for you generally. It has made the syrup incredibly dark brown, but I kind of think that that's actually just because we're not used to seeing brown elderflower. That's not right. Yeah. Just because we're not used to seeing brown elderflower cordial doesn't mean that we can't do in the future.
Well, the actual thing just all be round.
It's just fine. It's just a bit.
It looks like a specimen.
Fine.